And so Herodias wanted John the Baptist dead, but unfortunately for her, her husband Herod Antipas was seemingly fond of John the Baptist. Mark's Gospel says that Herod Antipas continually kept John the Baptist safe. You see, Herod enjoyed listening to John. He listened to John very gladly. Herod Antipas saw John the Baptist as a holy and righteous man, so Herod would ensure that no harm came to John the Baptist. So Herodias was going to have to think of something. She had to think outside the square. Herodias had to outsmart Herod, outwit Herod. So she was going to set up a trap. Herodias was going to put Herod in a position where he had no choice but to put John the Baptist to death. Mark's Gospel says that Herodias waited for the opportune moment to do this, and the opportunity came with Herod's birthday. On Herod's birthday, Herod held a banquet for his officials, his nobles, his courtiers, his military commanders, and all the leading men of Galilee. And for his birthday celebrations, Salome, Herod's stepdaughter, Herodias' daughter, she performed the dance for Herod and all the men, and Mark's Gospel says that she pleased and beguiled all the men. She really captured their attention. Herod experienced so much pleasure watching Salome perform that he offers her whatever she desires. By offering Salome whatever she desires, Herod is making it clear how much Salome's dancing pleased him. And to me, it comes across as though Herod wants to experience more of that pleasure. All this implies that Herod was physically attracted to Salome, his stepdaughter, and this is sickening. This is the sickness of a world ruled by people who were ruled by the sinful desires of their heart. And I don't know which makes me sicker, that Herod was physically attracted to Salome, his stepdaughter, or that Herodias knew that her husband Herod was physically attracted to Salome, her daughter, and she manipulated her husband's attraction to her daughter to fulfill her sinful, evil desire, her sinful, evil plan to have John the Baptist dead. It was Herodias who planned for Salome, her daughter, to dance for Herod on his birthday. It is sickening that Herodias put her daughter in this position. Now, I don't think Herodias could have known exactly how Herod would respond to Salome's dancing, but she knew that Herod would have a strong response to Salome dancing for him, because she knew that her husband Herod was physically attracted to Salome, her daughter. So when Herod is sinfully aroused by Salome dancing for him, he consequently offers Salome whatever she asks for. And I can imagine when Herodias hears Herod offer Salome whatever she asks for, I can imagine Herodias being consumed by the sinister happiness that consumes a heart and soul that is consumed by sin. Herod saw John the Baptist as a holy and righteous man. He saw John the Baptist as a man who was close to God, and I think Herod would have believed that to do anything wrong to John the Baptist was to do wrong to God. But here is Herod on his birthday, and he has just made an oath to give Salome whatever she asks for as a consequence of him being sinfully aroused by her dancing for him. Your sinful desires will always cost you more than you desire to pay. As a consequence of his sinful desires, Herod Antipas offers Salome whatever she asks for. I believe that Herod was trying to use the law of reciprocity. Herod Antipas experienced so much pleasure watching Salome perform that he wanted to put himself in a position where he could experience more of that pleasure by making Salome feel obliged, by making Salome feel compelled to perform for him on further occasions, to please him on further occasions. This is Herod following the sinful desires of his heart. I think this is why Herod made an oath to give Salome whatever she asks for. Herod made an oath to Salome. He said, "Ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. Whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom." So Salome approaches her mother to ask her, "What shall I ask for?" And inevitably, Herodias answers, "The head of John the Baptist." And so Salome hurries towards King Herod and says, "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." Herod Antipas was deeply distressed by the position he put himself in. He offered to give Salome whatever she asked for, but what she asked for was the last thing that Herod wanted to give. The death of John the Baptist was the last thing Herod wanted. But Herod made an oath to Salome to give her whatever she asked for, and this oath was witnessed by Herod's high officials, by his military commanders, and all the leading men of Galilee. These were men who followed Herod's commands. These were men who were required to make an oath to Herod and fulfill whatever oath they made to Herod. If these men saw Herod fail to fulfill an oath that he had made, then these men would see a great hypocrisy in Herod. If these men saw Herod fail to fulfill an oath that Herod had made, then these men would see Herod fail to do something that Herod expected of them. And if these men saw this, then Herod would immediately lose their trust and their respect. And Herod could not afford to lose their trust or their respect to maintain his effectiveness as a leader. And here's the other thing. If Herod publicly opposed the death of John the Baptist, then Herod would reveal his heartfelt feelings towards John the Baptist, and Herod's high officials, his military commanders, and all the leading men of Galilee, they would be completely confused, and they would question Herod's allegiance to Caesar. See, Herod's high officials, his military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee, they served Herod because Herod served Caesar, just as his father, Herod the Great, did. So if Herod publicly opposed the death of John the Baptist, it would come across as though Herod opposed Caesar. You see, John the Baptist was a man who devoted his life to the God of the Jews. If Herod publicly opposed Salome's request for the execution of John the Baptist, even though Herod publicly made an oath to give Salome whatever she asked for, if Herod publicly opposed the death of John the Baptist, it would come across as though John the Baptist had turned Herod's heart towards the God of the Jews. And if it came across as though John the Baptist turned Herod's heart towards the God of the Jews, then it would come across as though Herod's heart had turned away from Caesar. And this would be confusing to Rome. This could be offensive to Rome, and Rome would lose their trust in Herod, and Herod could lose his life of privilege. His life of privilege that allowed him to live out his sinful desires. It would be the end of Herod's life of privilege. The only life Herod knew would be over, and who knows what would have happened to him. Herod clearly did not want to find out. What Herod Antipas did to John the Baptist reveals the kind of world that Jesus came into. Jesus came into a world that was ruled by people who were ruled by the sinful desires of their heart. Jesus came into the world as the only one who fully followed the desires of God's heart. Jesus was the only one who was fully consumed by the desires of God's heart. And because Jesus was fully consumed by the desires of God's heart, Jesus sacrificed his life for us. And because Jesus sacrificed his life for us, the Holy Spirit can come into our hearts and guide our hearts towards the desires of God's heart, so that we too can live as Jesus lived and live as Jesus lives.